it's kind of seems like we're developing this model of a coordinate system, right? Where you have front, back, sort of a Z axis, and then a Y vertical axis, right? And so then you have a left, right, also like a X, right? In a coordinate system, X is left and right. So you're kind of moving lateral, medial, side to side. Like if you're on an airplane or a movie theater, we're kind of going down the rows, right? Excuse me. And then the y-axis is where you stand up and down, right? Jumping up and down at that vertical from head to feet or head to perineum. And then you have the front and back, right? Which is the z-axis coming to and away from the screen here. And so then you have a coordinate system. So what's useful about the center line, right? That bisects the upper and lower, right? So you have a line that bisects front and back. You have a line that bisects left and right. And then you have a line that can bisect upper and lower torso, let's say. Yeah. I mean, you could say upper and lower body if that horizontal left, right, x-axis. I have to define it as x-axis because this is also horizontal, right? So, but that's going front and back. So that's the z-axis. So the z horizontal, right? There's the x horizontal, which is left and right. So depending on where you define that, right? Do you want to define that as intersecting the same sternal notch here, right? Shoulder height, right? Or if you intersect it at the navel, right? Then you have an upper and lower body kind of definition. If you look at Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, right? One person who I kind of consider being in the lineage of, right? He lived, he passed away 500 years ago. I went to visit his grave in France in Amboise. Anyways, so I like his conceptions, right? He has a lot of maps that he tried to draw and creatively understand the human body and even engineering and many inventions. So if you look at the Vitruvian Man, this kind of, some say it's a self-portrait, right? A naked man, right? Inside of a circle and a square, right? Maybe you could even fit an equilateral triangle in there. I mean, it's beautiful as an art. And I think it appeals to our sensibilities because it applies a lot of the golden ratio proportions that are in nature, right? And so when we apply that to the human body, it's not only is it beautiful, but then we also can tap into some universal truths, right? So not to get too far into esoterica, but I think a useful definition of the horizontal left-right x-axis is to define when you want to use techniques that defend the upper torso and the lower torso, right? So, some of you who are watching practice different styles, yeah? But if we use the WingChun vocabulary, right, we have something called Tan, which has come up in previous videos between us. Tan is kind of like this, right? I talked about it being kind of a spiral formation that covers this whole area, right? It can even go a little bit higher or a little bit lower, right? Now, there is a point where that defensive technique, defensive strike, defensive attack even, to attack the limbs of the opponent, like I said earlier, right? In that example, someone coming, from the outside, you can use a Tan-like shape to spread it out. I would say it's good to define then a water line, if you will, right, above and below, where the Tan loses its scope of functionality, right? And in the body, I would say that's about solar plexus level, right? And because the Tan fails against strikes that are below the elbow or slightly above the elbow, right?
Yeah.
So I can protect all the way up to here, right? So you could say on the body, for most people, that's about the solar plexus. And the solar plexus isn't important in and of itself for this sort of more geographic definition. In terms of like other practices like breath work or neigong or qigong, it is, right, in terms of internal alchemy. In terms of like surgery, right, there's a plexus there too, right? So it's a very important sort of neural area. But in this case, we'll just focus more on the physicality of, about elbow or slightly above elbow is good to define a line, right? So we can categorize the scope of practice of our tool set, right? And let's say there's 50 tools. Well, it's good to define, in general, as a general sketch of incoming, incoming attacks. Like, am I going to choose the first decision, right? If there is a, and with training, it's almost like a subconscious decision. Okay,
Yeah.
is this incoming above or below that line of scrimmage right here? Is it above or below my solar plexus? You can take a quick snapshot. Oh, right, it's coming in from my left side, above, right? But maybe you see a little trajectory. Maybe it starts at, say, head or shoulder height, but it's kind of coming downwards, right? And by the time it reaches you, you can calculate that it's going to be below that solar plexus line, right? Or it's more level and it's coming and it's going to reach, say, your chin, right? So it's good to have this line defined, right? For that purpose, right? This is part of, again, the NI, natural intelligence, right? AI is all the rage now, right? But maybe this is a kind of artificial intelligence, right? That humans made up. It's kind of our concepts. Are they artificial? I mean, they're man-made, right? And so they're mapped onto, let's say, nature, right? To make sense of it. And again, to engineer a certain efficacy. In a way, you can say, okay, that's good, spears and fire. But again, this kind of mechanistic kind of thinking taken too far, we're seeing some consequences of that, right? Overly trying to control nature for our purposes. But again, that's a side commentary. But if I continue this example, then okay, so let me say then, okay, the incoming, I'm able to observe that strike is coming below this X, center line, right? This left-right X-axis center line. That means maybe I thought, oh, maybe my hands are high, right? Maybe my hands are up here, but then the strike is coming below that. Then I'm going to forego, let's say those 50% of techniques that defend up here. I'm going to immediately go into my database and process of elimination, right? I'm not going to do, the tan or whatever strikes come up here. I'm going to choose a lower body defense, right? Yeah. And I can feel it, right? If you train it a lot, you can really feel that there's a line there. It's a virtual line, right? And so as the strike comes down, maybe I will convert my tan, and then in a Wing Chun parlance, maybe I'll change it to a gum sao, right, which is pressing downwards, or a gan, depending on where it's attacking my space, right? And so that's useful,